Hello everyone and welcome back. At this time of the year, we see lots of small rosemary plants in stores, especially for Christmas. The problem with those is they are heavily pruned in order to look like Christmas tree shape. They often come in smaller pots than they usually need to be in. So they kind of die after some time. They actually grow quite large. So if you want to keep them, you need to repot them as soon as you bring it home. At least 3 times larger than the pot it comes in. I'll never forget the experience and the disappointment I had last year because I killed a couple of rosemary plants, especially at the Christmas time, because I didn't know these type of things. And then the following spring, I went to a small garden store, local garden center. There, a lady helped me in explaining how they thrive and stuff like that. And with my experience this year, I'm successful. As you can see, this is my rosemary plant. And I bought it very small size and I repotted it in this big planter. And look at this now, it is huge. It needs repotting. As you can see, the roots are coming out of the pot. That's the sign when you know the plant needs repotting. Salvia rosmarinus, commonly known as rosemary, is a woody, fragrant herb that is native to Mediterranean region. In those conditions, rather than getting the moisture from the soil, the herb is acclimatized to getting the moisture from the air. So if we can imitate those conditions, our herb will thrive better and it will last long. When it comes to watering, only water the plant when the soil is dry. The best way to know that is by finger test. Stick your finger down in the soil and if you feel the soil is dry, then that needs watering. Usually with other plants, 1 inch should be okay, but with rosemary, because this cannot tolerate wet feet, so I would go 2 inches down the soil, and if you feel the soil is dry, that means if you take this finger out of the soil and it doesn't stick, the soil doesn't stick to the finger, that means the soil is dry and it needs watering, it can tolerate that. So then I water the plant thoroughly, and let the water drain from the drainage and then make sure it is not sitting in the water. I usually put a tray underneath with gravel or pebbles. That way, even though if there is some quantity of water, then that drips into the drainage, into the rocks, and then that creates a humidity. As it evaporates, the foliage gets the mist of the water. So that's the way we should water the plant. If you live in colder temperatures below 10 degrees or 20 degrees Fahrenheit, then bring the plant indoors because it doesn't like cold temperatures. Bring it indoors and make sure you place the plant where the window gets maximum sun exposure. When it comes to lighting, rosemary plant needs at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. So if we make sure that is there, then even in indoors or outdoors, it will thrive in full sun. For a bushier rosemary plant, pruning is the technique. Just pinch the top bits like that, and then you will see 2 new shoots from that, and that way you will have a bushier plant rather than a woody plant. So that's the technique. And also when it comes to fertilizing, it is not a heavy feeder. I usually fertilize this every spring with manure because when we repot, I usually put some manure on the top of the soil, and once a month or maybe twice a month, I would give nitrogen-rich liquid fertilizers because we are growing this for leaves, so nitrogen is good for lush leaves. Most common reasons for rosemary plant not to survive is because number 1, overwatering. Overwatering causes the rosemary plant's root to rot, so make sure that's not happening. And also low light, they cannot thrive in low light, so at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight is necessary. And also repotting. These plants they grow huge, so they need repotting. As soon as you see the pot is the roots are coming out of the planter, you need to make sure it's potted in the double the size of it or 3 times more the size of the plant. Then they thrive, they have much aeration and they thrive in that. And also make sure you mist the plant, especially indoors, because the air gets drier and it's not good for the plant. So just mist it with water whenever possible. It may seem like a lot of work to keep these rosemary plants happy indoors, but it's an easy procedure once you get the hang of it. Now I'll talk about how to propagate the rosemary plant with cuttings. So let's watch the procedure. It is also really easy one to root. Take around 4 inches or 6 inches long. I'm using two methods here. One is by soil propagation and the other one is water propagation. So let's start with the soil propagation first. For soil propagation, I have took these 3 strands of rosemary, and then all I'm doing here is take the leaves off, and these can be used for cooking too, so I'm not going to waste them. And then just at an angle cut the end like that, and then stick it in the soil. The same way I'm going to do for this too. So I'll take all these tiny little things, and I think this should be okay. I'm cutting at an angle. So I took 4-inch pot here. Once this starts to root, I'll repot this in the ground. For propagation by soil, I have used well-draining soil here. Keep it little bit damp, not too soggy, not too dry. So as the soil is damp, it will take root. The next method is by water propagation. Here I took water bottle and I cut it into this size, but you can use glass jar or any plastic container, that should work. And this is already, I have taken the leaves off and I'm using this one to root. Just put it in the water like this, or maybe to the desirable height. I might cut a little bit like that. Can you see the nodes? There are nodes, so make sure the node is exposed and then cut below that. I'm cutting it at an angle. Make sure the leaves are not under the water. That's basically all it is. This is 2 weeks after propagating this in water. So they have developed roots. Now what I'm going to do is just stick them into the soil. I am using here is well-draining soil mix, and it has got manure, compost, everything in it. White bits that you see, they are called perlite. This is stone from lava. They keep the soil light. So basically I use this pot, terracotta. Now I stick the cutting into the soil and cover with dirt like this. The same way I do it to this one too. And this one I'm going to pot it. I live in zone 9, tropical conditions, so I want to pot this outside in the ground, and I would like to see how this grows in the ground. That's all about rosemary care, propagation. Also, can't beat the fresh taste of rosemary roasted potatoes, so it's worth the try. Thank you for watching.